Welcome to Thriving in the Game, a podcast dedicated to exploring what Black women need to navigate the corporate world of technology, offering insights, strategies, and personal stories that will affirm, validate, and encourage you on your journey up the corporate ladder. I'm your host, Alicia. Join me as we learn how to thrive together. One of the things I wish we spent more time preparing folks for is how to respond to career challenges and disappointments. There have been many times in my career where I was so frustrated, whether trying to negotiate my salary, bonuses that felt like they fell short of my performance, or feeling like I was being passed over for different opportunities. But it's in those moments where you've got to figure out how to pivot. You've got to shift your perspective, assess your gaps, and put strategies into place that will enable you to make moves and ultimately get what you want out of your tech career. Coming up, you'll hear a conversation between myself and Thea Turay. With over 20 years in information technology, Thea is a consultant, people leader, professor, mentor, and an impactful mover and shaker in her community that is focused on helping others succeed. As a friend and former colleague, I'm delighted to share Thea's engaging story as she walks us through the strategies she's often employed to pivot, to reassess and realign around her expectation gaps, to advocate for her career goals, and to empower herself by building a strong community of support. Jumping into this conversation, I asked Thea to share with us a bit more about her background and early journey in tech.
I do have over 20 years of experience as an associate professor teaching English, and one of the courses was professional writing. And then a portion of that was focused on resumes and job preparation and your professional persona and all of that exciting stuff. So it's a lot of folks ranging all kinds of ages, teenagers to adults. And the things that I really liked the most were the mentoring and coaching around your professional presence, what it is that you're looking for in your jobs, and even, is this working for me? Wherever you are in your journey, right? Because the courses that I taught, a lot of the people were already working. Some of them were doing career transitions. Some of them were brand new into their career. So that really was the most energizing piece for me. And just talking through not just the resume, but also how do you want to be seen? What is it that you are hoping to get from a particular experience? Because I think a lot of times we're just like, oh, I just need a job. I just need to get paid, right? You do need to get paid, and that is important. But you actually own your own professional journey. It's not forced on you. You are in charge of your future and your destiny. You do have input in it. And then you need to start thinking about, how do I walk through that?
And that really aligns with the conversation that I want to have today. We know that early career women, especially in this age of TikTok, right? Every time you see it, the little razzle dazzle stories that say, I started out making $150,000 a year. We both know that that doesn't align with real world market conditions. But if you've spent this time getting this degree, you've gone to the conferences, you're networking, and then you join this company with all of that hope, and you're not yet seeing that movement in your career, and you definitely didn't start at that $150K. As a matter of fact, according to Glassdoor, the median annual salary for an entry-level IT job is only $52 to $90K, right? We know that depends upon whether you're a project manager, a software developer, data. So it's those expectations are unmet. And so there is some frustration that comes along with that. So how do we help early career Black women or transitioning career folks really start to assess so that they can close the gap on those expectations?
I think the first thing is, it is always about the money, right? So let's just be real with it. It's about the money. I say that to my students. I say it to people in the industry. It is about the money. But if you are early career, what are we talking about? 3 to 5 years in your career, or maybe you're transitioning. Let's say you've done the work in terms of some training, some education. That is your table stakes to get you in. Now you need experience And you're also going to need some other soft skills that you don't have yet. And that's where you need to start thinking about what kind of experience is it that I'm getting? What is it that I want to get from this opportunity? And what is it that I want to give? So I always go to opportunities with things that I want to get from it. I am my best advocate. So those days of, I'm going to be in a company for 25 years and they're going to promote me because I'm so amazing. That's not it. And definitely in technology, that is not it. You need to be the person to promote yourself, which means you need to regularly take inventory of yourself and your own skills, technical skills, soft skills, to determine, am I where I want to be to help close the gap in that money? Because that's really where it comes to. So it's great that you got your education, and I'm always about education, obviously, but there's always trainings, there's learnings, conferences, all of those things you need in your toolkit to move you forward and help you close that gap. So don't be discouraged if you did not come in at the 150. That's probably not going to happen. So we'll just tell you that right now. We didn't want to discourage you, but it might not even be the 100, but that's okay, right? So this is where you get to write your own journey and you define what that XYZ is. And some of it outright is just going to be experience. If you just graduated from a graduate program, you're probably not getting 150. And you might be thinking, sheesh, I just took out $150,000 for my student loans. I need to make back that money. You do, but it's not going to be with your first job. It might not even be with your second job. But this is why I keep coming back to think about what is it that you want to get. So as an example, earlier in my career, I started off actually as a tech writer. So my undergraduate degree was in professional writing from Purdue University. My graduate degree was in technical communication from Rensselaer Polytech. So that positioned me nicely for a tech writer position. As I started working, I realized maybe about 4 years in that in the technology industry, that project managers were making significantly more than I was as a tech writer. Mm-hmm. And so I said, okay, Thea, here's the experience that you have. Mm-hmm. How are you going to get there? And that's how I started looking at other job opportunities with different titles and seeing that business analyst was doing very similar to work to tech writer. So I started applying for business analyst. You might be thinking, that's still not a project manager. That's okay. The other thing we have to realize is you're going to have to stair step it, right? Like you're not always going to be able to get a huge leap. But I knew the path that I was trying to go, which was I wanted to be a project manager. Ultimately, I wanted to lead people. So then what I found is getting the business analyst roles, then it shifted to BA PM roles. So some of you have been in the field, you know, there's a lot of hybrid roles. Really, it was a 2-for-1 because the project managers make more money, but they figure if they can get you in there as the BA PM. So I said, don't like that from the money perspective, but from the experience perspective, I'm trying to get to be a project manager. Now I'm a BA. If I need to do a BA PM role for a minute to get me there, fine, I'll do that. But all this comes back to you need to know what it is that you want to do for yourself, right?
And let me dig into that because you've given a lot of good nuggets just in your story. So when we're saying you need to know what you are looking to learn from a company, it's not just the perks. It's not just the PTO days. Yes, those are important. From the very beginning of your career, those are very important.
That's so important.
When you're going into a role, what do you want to take from it? Yes, I need a job. I need pay every 2 weeks, monthly, weekly, whatever your schedule is. But for you as a tech writer, this was an introduction to technology. And then you started to see a disparity between this other role and this other role. And I've worked with technical writers. Oftentimes, the difference between a BA and a technical writer could be a $20,000 to $40,000 gap, depending upon the company. Why not go into the role where you start to learn how to work with a technical team? You're also learning how the project operates because you're probably working with a project manager and you're learning to speak with marketing, speak with legal, speak with HR,
Right.
and you're learning the various ways that they communicate with technology. So
Right.
like you said, each stair step that you're laying out. And for some people, this is within a couple years. For some people, it could be over the course of 10 years. The goal isn't to rush you through your career. But if you are struggling with that frustration, I'm not where I want to be. I know I want to be making a certain amount of money. You do have to work your way there. There's no way around that. So you were starting to talk about that hybrid BA PM role. And I do want our audience to be mindful of those hybrid roles. So in our current state environment, we know that technology, there have been layoffs. And so again, real world market conditions. The last time we struggled with this environment was probably 2008, 2009. And for folks newly in the game, you have to realize things are cyclical.
Right.
You will go through highs and lows in your career. You'll go through highs and lows in the market. So if you're coming in when it's high, yeah, you might be a little higher in terms of salary and benefits and perks. But if you're coming out in an environment like now, you also have to be mindful that it's a struggle. You've got more experienced professionals out there who are struggling to get consistent work, right? So especially if you're earlier in your career, if maybe you've gone through a layoff, if you're starting to look at that next role, don't shortcut yourself.
Right.
As Thea said, make sure you're kind of setting that goal to learn. But at the same time, you're in a market where you may be forced into a hybrid role and you may have to endure that for a little bit. So Thea, tell us about your experience in that and how did you get that step closer to your project management role?
That's a great question. Don't get stuck in titles, right? You need them, but it's a title. You're not pinned by it because you market yourself. For example, there are some roles that I had that were a BA role, but I was actually doing project management. The company didn't necessarily call it a hybrid role. I called it a hybrid role on my resume because I knew based on what I was seeing, I knew that, y'all, I'm actually doing PM work. So let's just put it out there to prepare me for my next thing. I don't get stuck in titles. I lead with the experience that I want to get because when I do my resume, I'm going to repurpose the title that I need it to be to get me to my next level. Just so you know, that's okay for you to do that. If your experience lends itself to that. Like if I've never done project management, I can't bust out and put that I was a PM and then I don't even know how to talk about it, nor do I have any experience to back it up.
Right.
So I don't get stuck into titles in that way. I'm more focused on our favorite, the money.
Yeah.
And the experience. Like I tell my students, you need your money now. You need your money to build the life that you want to have. But you also need to figure out tactically what experience is it that I'm trying to get. You need to know for yourself, what is it that I want to do? Alicia said something a minute ago about assessing the situations that you're in. So another sister girlfriend of mine, she always talks about reassess and realign in the workplace.
I like
and I love that. I do too. I love it.
Tell her I'm going to borrow it.
Right. And she knows I borrow it. It is not something that I do every month because you don't necessarily need to do that, but you could do it annually. Reassess your situation. And then if you are not happy with it, figure out what you need to do to realign it. Possibly it's, I actually don't want to be in technology anymore. Or I want to go a different direction in technology. You are the one that's in charge of your life. But for you to be happy with it, you need to do an assessment of it. You don't want to just go along and because the company is going to promote you for what they want you to do, not what you want you to do. So you don't want to get lost in that trap of just going along and then you're somewhere for 10 years and you're like, sheesh, I don't even like what I'm doing. You probably didn't like it before 10 years. You probably didn't like it at year 5, right?
Right.
And it's okay. Just figure out how you're going to go your next direction. That's all.
I think often early in your career, I remember at times it felt overwhelming, right? Because you went from this very predictable middle school to high school to college, you go get the great job. And then you get here and you're like, oh, snap, this is different. It's a game. You got politics. you got networking, you have to get mentors, you have to do all these things. And so managing your career, which is what you have to do really from day one, you have to manage your career. It can feel overwhelming. It can feel frustrating because in some areas, no, you can't control what happens.
That's right.
But you can manage yourself in that situation, right? So like you said,
right.
Part of this is we're talking about assessing those gaps in your expectations. So one, again, making sure they're realistic with the market, with the size of the company, with the role.
Right.
So you're coming in, you're a business analyst. It's a medium-sized company. Okay, maybe you're making about $68,000. You thought you were going to be making 90.
You are not.
You're not. And that's, and I don't, and I want to make sure, like, I am not saying that with a snooty attitude of like, it's not that. I just want you to be real with yourself, know what you're getting into. And then because of the social media comparison, I don't want you feeling like you're not doing wonderful at this point.
Right.
68,000 is still an amazing salary over many of the people in this country, but it may not be where you want to be. And that's okay. Like Thea said, we're stair-stepping our way. We're figuring out the next steps. And then I think you should do that assessment every 6 months, right? Like check in with your, well, because
Alicia's extra.
Look, I am extra, okay?
she's extra.
I'm a planner and often anxiety driven. So, take it with a grain of salt. But the reason why I say 6 months is because one, you're talking about most companies are doing performance reviews.
Okay.
And then maybe a manager sees you with great leadership skills and they're like, maybe you should consider a career in project management. That's an opportunity for you to consider. But ultimately, it's up to you. You're like, maybe in 4 years. Right now, I'm really enjoying being a software developer. I'm enjoying the creativity. I'm enjoying the projects that I'm working on. That's wonderful. 6 months in, check in with yourself. Okay, I'm tired of doing mobile development. I think I want to start doing some training and working on something different. Or that could be a year or 2 or 3 or 4 years from that point. But I do think checking in with yourself biannually, capture the things that you've done, the skills that you've been building, the trainings that you've been completing. And maybe that helps you focus on, again, that next stair step.
They could be thinking, this is a lot. Like I thought I was going to just be able to get to some place and then be on autopilot. And so we just want to share with you, no, it's work. You are the one doing the work for yourself, for what you want. Because at the end of the day, remember, you are there for them. They are going to make decisions based on what is good for them.
For the company.
And if it happens to be good, if it happens to be good for you and works out, great. But they are doing what is best for them. So, like I've told some of the early career folks more recently, it's not personal. It really is just business. Like this is how they make money. So this piece may be challenging for people. You're going to have to get out of your feelings with it. Their goal is not necessarily to develop you unless it's to benefit them. But this is why you need to go into the workplace game with what is it that I want? How is this going to work for me? Period. Those are the questions you need to ask yourself if you go with Alicia's approach of the biannual assessment. That's what you're asking yourself. Hey, am I getting what I came for? If I'm not getting it exactly, because this was only 6 months, am I on track to get what I came for? Do I see that in my future here? Have I shared it with people here that can help me with it, right? Keeping in mind, though, they hired you to do X. So if anything that you want to do is outside of X, you're going to need to figure out how it's going to work for them for you to do X. That's the game pieces that are coming in.
Give me an example of that, because I like how you said that. So, for example, I'm looking at becoming a safe practitioner, but I'm a business analyst. How do I get what I want, but also make it so it seems like it's a benefit to the company? And likely is.
Look at what you're doing, what's happening in the company. Actually, I'm going to give you an example of exactly that. And it was SAFE certified. So I was working for a banking institution. And at the time, my title was release manager. But no lie, I did like 5 things at that job, which is ultimately how I left, because only one of the 5 things did I want to do, but it wasn't the release management piece. They wanted me to do the release management because they said, listen to what I'm saying. You're amazing at it. You've mastered it. You've got the relationships. This is good for us. Why would you want to leave? This is a win-win for all of us. Is it? What us? Okay. Thank you. I'm going to go find something else to do. So here was the thing. I didn't know what job titles corresponded to what I wanted to do, but I knew that it wasn't release management because I wanted to be more over teams. I wanted to be a leader. I was a leader. And they saw me as a leader, but I didn't want to do it in that way. I wanted to do it differently. But again, I didn't know what titles. So I was like, well, when they were like, hey, if people want to take SAFE certification, we're paying for it. This is a 4-day course. We're paying for it in person.
Do it. Take all the free training.
And I was like, I have no idea how this is going to benefit me. However, I've been hearing the buzzwords in technology about SAFE. I'm going to do it. It was fantastic. I put it on my resume, and those experiences translated into the amazing opportunity that I got next, which had nothing to do with release management, but it put me in the path of the things that I actually wanted to do. Again, not getting stuck in titles. Look at the actual experience. How would you articulate it? Because it's the skills, not the title. That's the word I'm looking for. Transferable skills. But the other thing too is I was looking for opportunities in my current role to expand my skill set, right? Always be looking for opportunities on how you can upskill yourself, take on other opportunities. Don't take it to your detriment. Make sure you're still doing your main thing well. And then they needed a scrum master. Well, because I was the release manager and I was already involved in portfolio stuff, I knew that that was coming down. So they were like, yeah, we need somebody to do this just for a period of time. And I said, oh, well, I'll do it. I also told the portfolio manager, hey, I need to start doing something else. And he was like, okay, I'm going to have you start doing some PM stuff. That's the other thing. Share.
But share carefully. Make sure you identify the right person to share with who is going to support you gaining that additional knowledge and even being able to demonstrate your skill set in that area.
For me, this person was that because he was one of the portfolio managers and I already worked very closely with him as the release manager. Now, did I want to do the scrum master and release master together? No, ma'am. That's too much work. But for a period of time, I knew what I came there to get. So when that opportunity came, I just told him I could do it. It was a short-term thing and I was in because I was already there. So it wasn't like they needed to do anything. Now, that also goes to be careful what you're asking for because then the expectation was they did want me to do both.
Right.
So that's why I'm like, know what you're asking for when you do it. And that experience, that came at the end of my time as the release manager. And no lie, that experience as the scrum master for that team, it was probably only 2 months. And on my resume, so I'm listing all these things that I did as release manager, which anybody reading it is like, okay, this is way more than release manager. You doing PI plannings, you doing Scrum, doing Jenkins updates, configuration, like you doing about 50 things.
And she says I'm extra.
Well, yes, I ended up leaving because I said then, look, you guys, here's the thing that I really want to focus in. But they gave me that speech about this is working so well. Why would you want to leave? That's when I knew I will not be able to do what I would like to do on this team. So I'm going to need to explore. So I started exploring other opportunities within that company. Nothing came through. And then the opportunity that I currently have came through and I got it based on that Scrum experience that I really had only done for 3 months of that whole 3 years that I was there, right? But that's why I'm saying you never know what experience is going to help you get to the next thing, which is why I'm experience hungry. That's why I don't limit myself on titles. Because you heard all the things that I said that I did, but that was under the title of release manager. Yeah. Half those things didn't have anything to do with it, right? But it helped me make my next leap, which I was very appreciative of.
I think it's Russell Reynolds Associates through Forbes.com. They talk about how Black IT employees have a shorter average tenure than non-Black tech workers. They're usually changing jobs every 3.5 years compared to like 5 years. But that to me, while that statistic is quite interesting, because it could be a plethora of reasons as to why, it's not a bad thing. If I came here with certain goals in mind and I've achieved them,
that's how I feel like I've gotten the great experiences that I've gotten, because I wasn't afraid to be like, I love you guys, but this isn't working for me. And then you just move on. You need to be honest with yourself about what it is that you're wanting to gain. And then if you are or not getting it.
But also do that even when you experience frustration. Assess the situation, figure out the gaps. Is there something you can do in the current environment? But if not, don't be afraid to move.
Right. If it's not working for you, you need to move on.
Yeah. That's why we're saying do that assessment of your gaps and put your skills in your resume and in your LinkedIn, because when the market is up, I tell you, I've had 3 roles just from, 2 or 3 roles just from LinkedIn. And if people ask you at work, just say, I keep it updated. Like, it doesn't have to be a whole conversation.
Right.
Oh, are you looking for a job? I'm never not looking for a job.
Thank you.
I'm always open to opportunities. So, and you can say it with less sass. I just prefer sass, but
of course you
honestly and truly.
So to your point, I also have gotten 3 positions that I really enjoyed from LinkedIn. They found me. Yeah. And if I could have picked those opportunities, I couldn't have picked them any better. But similarly to you, I'm always open for conversation, because it's a conversation. Like, you never know what could come from it. But I do think in terms of this piece here, you need to keep your eyes open in your current situation. So you've got here's what I came here for, right? So you've got your 3 to 5 things. This is what I want to get. Do your job in your current place for a little bit, because you need to understand the lay of the land, who's who, all that stuff, right? Do it well. And then be looking for other ways to increase those skills that you had on your list, right?
I know we said earlier, you do have to get out of your feelings in terms of like recognizing that in order to thrive in the game, this is a game, right? And it can't be overly personal, because otherwise it will harm you. However, if I've come in with these expectations and they are unmet, we know that feelings are a part of that. Like anybody who works really hard, to a certain extent, you personalize your work. It represents you. And so I do want to make space for, how do you manage that bitter taste and affirm those emotions, but without getting sidetracked?
So this is where you actually need some sister friends in your space that you can actually talk to. Sometimes it's just a vent. Sometimes it's to bounce it off of, that maybe help you realign and reassess your expectations of a situation. I would say you need to find some good people that you can talk to that understand the business, that understand the lay of the land, and they don't necessarily have to work with you at that place. Sometimes it's good to have one person there because they know all the characters in the story, but they don't have to work there, because fundamentally, for better or for worse, we're all actually facing the same things.
And I will say, I have always struggled to find true mentors, because we're always told you need a mentor. For me, it's never really happened. So find people who are in that same vein, who recognize and affirm, they validate who you are as a person, and they also offer you encouragement, and they also offer you solution-oriented advice, right? You're not going to stay stuck. Take your moment, take a weekend, take a PTO day if you need to, but then you got to come out of it, because you need to make a plan, again, to move you towards that next step. That just means that this might not be the place for that to happen.
You need a community of people that's actually a safe space that can allow you the venting of the frustration, but then also the solutions on how you can move forward. Not people that are going to just let you keep venting forever and complaining and complaining and complaining. When nobody got time for that in the game. So you need to find your community that helps you move forward in that situation. Sometimes gives you some hard truths about your gaps, about your expectations, and things like you may need to make a move.
But also calling those things out in you that maybe you don't see.
That too.
That you can continue to build on. So those leadership skills or the way you present. So like Thea said, you need that community that has accountability, but also support.
Yeah, it's support because the mentors for me, I saw how they worked. I saw their work ethic. I saw their professionalism. And then as a result of that, that's how they ended up being in the community of people. And keeping in mind that not what's my friend's granddaddy say, everybody that's your color is not your kind. Even in your regular associations to help you thrive in the game, you will need to be discerning about who those folks are, even in that community.
And that's what we're hoping to build here, right? We have our social media, we have our newsletter. That's what it's all about. Affirmation, validation, and encouragement. We're going to hold you accountable, but we also want to see you win. I think it's hard not to start off your career without some level of entitlement. After all, you worked really hard and invested a lot to get here. I'm sure in many ways you figured success would come easily, but by now, you've also learned that it doesn't always quite work out that way. There will always be some level of unmet expectation because, unfortunately, it's not about you or me. It's about the business. And it's a structure that was never designed with us in mind. Remember, early career Black women. While your expectations are important to you, your goals have to align with the market and serve the needs of the organization, at least until your next move. So don't get stuck, get strategic. When you experience career disappointments, give yourself space to process those emotions. Lean on your established community, but then you got to get up and get back in the game. You've got to approach your corporate tech career like a chess game. Employ a long-term strategy. Focus your moves on what will prepare you for the next step. You may decide to trade some goals to simplify your career path, or you may activate new skills to better position yourself in the market. You might even take on some additional responsibilities in order to create some future career advantages. Ultimately, you want to make career moves as quickly as you realize you are no longer honoring your long-term growth. As Thea and I wrapped up our time together, I asked her to share some parting thoughts.
Thank you for having me. This was exciting. I'm excited for the community at large, for those of you that are joining in and wherever you are in your journey. I just hope that this is going to be something that's beneficial to you and that you really learn that you are actually in control of it and start figuring out how to manage it so that you really can truly thrive in the game.
Thank you, Thea. You can find Thea on LinkedIn, and we'll see you next time. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Take some time to reflect on what you heard here. Be sure to follow us on IG and subscribe to our newsletter on Substack. Find us at Thriving in the Game on both. If you have a comment or recommendation, DM or email me. You can find my email in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you as we build community around thriving in the game. Until next time, take care.